Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, with a fun upcycle DIY project for you today. I had this grungy old step stool that had seen better days, so I decided to revamp it. I gave it a coat of a la mode white paint from Heirloom Traditions paint, and then I decided I wanted to do a gel transfer, and I found this pretty image on the Graphics Fairy, and I'll put a link to that as well as all the supplies that I'm using today. So when I cut out this pretty image that was on the Graphics Fairy, I saved the background piece because I'm going to use that as a mask or stencil, so that I can kind of have a definite area to put my gel transfer. So I taped the little cut area on my background stencil, and then I aligned it on the top of my stool and stippled on some pink paint. And what I did was I used that same a la mode white chalk paint from Heirloom Traditions, and I added just a dab of Artist's Alizerain Crimson so I could make a really soft pink color there. Then I thought I would use some of my stencils that I collect and kind of add some stenciled collage on the side of my box. So I started with this pretty fleur-de-lis stencil. I believe it's by Folk Art, and stenciled that at the top of my stool on the edge. And then I thought it'd be fun to kind of layer a few different elements. And there you can see this is a mask, so you're left with the fleur-de-lis designs with color around it. And then I took this Pretty Flourish, which is by Die Cuts with a View, and I stenciled that kind of overlapping and in the corner of my stool side. And then I found this pretty quatrefoil design, and I used a little dab of green and some of the a la mode Heirloom Traditions paint, and I am just stenciling that and also distressing the edges with my brush. Now, the reason I kept the base as that a la mode chalk paint is because I knew I could just tint it with a touch of my Artist acrylic, but I would still have that beautiful chalky finish, which will be perfect for when I get to the gel transfer and decoupage portions of this project. Do the same thing on the other end of the stool as well. Here on the top of the stool, you can see that I distressed the edges with a little bit of that yellow color that I had stenciled over the fleur-de-lis. I think it looks really great. And now I'm going to go ahead and add some texture and pattern around my butterfly, and I'm simply using that same quatrefoil design. I find repeating the same elements throughout a project makes it look really complete and finished, and makes everything kind of go together and increases harmony within a project. At this point, you can dry brush any of the colors you've used on the edges of your stool and let this dry completely before going on to the gel transfer portion of the project. I'm using a product called One Gel from Heirloom Traditions paint, and the nice thing about this product is that it works as a transfer medium, decoupage medium, and top coat. So you can get 3 uses out of 1 bottle of product, and that's great because who wants to store 3 bottles if you can do it all in one? What I'm doing here is very gently brushing on a coat of One Gel with a very soft brush because I don't want to disturb any of the inkjet ink underneath. Now, in hindsight, I think I would have been better off to actually paint the One Gel on the surface of my butterfly on top of the stool, paint it right on the stool, and then press the dry paper into it, just because dry paper is easier to manage than wet paper, and I wouldn't have to worry about my brush strokes smearing the ink. So I'm going to try that technique next time, but this did end up working all right in the end. And then after you've got it coated, you have to gently place it down where you want it. You can pick it up and rework it if you need to, but it's so much better if you get it down there right the first time, especially if you're working with an inkjet print, because that ink is going to want to move because it is a water-based product. So keep that in mind as you're working. Once you have your paper situated where you want it, you want to press it down so it makes really good contact with your stool, and that will lock the text where you want it to be. So you want the One Gel to kind of lock it in place. And then it's going to have to dry for 1 hour, which is a great benefit of this product. You don't have to let it dry overnight. You can use it with your inkjet prints. You only need 1 product to do everything, and it's ready in an hour. Just be careful that you don't get any One Gel on the back side of your print while you're working. Otherwise, it can make it difficult to do the next step. And here we are 1 hour later. The One Gel has dried, and I'm going to spray this with just clear water. So basically what you want to do here is saturate the paper. We're going to be removing the paper and leaving behind the ink. And this is a pretty standard procedure when you're doing a gel transfer, whether you're using another product and a laser print, or you're using One Gel and an inkjet print. You can also use One Gel with your laser prints as well. So I highly recommend this product just so that you don't have to have a bunch of bottles hanging around. So after you've wet the paper, what you're going to do is just kind of rub your paper in a circular motion, and that's going to make the paper kind of roll up in little pills, and you want to be very gentle, otherwise you may end up removing some of the ink. So just gently go around, rub it in circular motions, spray on some more water if you need to, and then you're going to be left with just the ink design. Don't worry if some rubs away though, because that just adds to the vintage charm of this piece. Once you have peeled up all the paper, you want to go over it with a soft dry brush and brush off any of the rolled up paper pills that you created in the last step. Now we need to seal our project. So we're going to take our One Gel and a soft brush and we're going to coat the entire surface that we transferred with the One Gel, and that's just going to lock down any of that ink and give it a protective coat. While the One Gel sealer is still wet, we can begin decoupaging. So what I like to do is kind of figure out where I want to place something, and then I'm going to flip over my cutout piece and apply a coat of One Gel to the back of the paper. This will make sure that you get a really good bond between the surface and the piece of paper you're trying to stick down. And now I'm setting that decoupage piece right down on top of the stool that still has the wet One Gel on top of it, and then I'm giving the paper another coat of One Gel on top, and that really just bonds everything really well and seals it down to the project. You want to repeat this step with every single piece you wish to collage. Don't forget to do the sides of the stool as well. Now you can stop at this point because if you've given it a cover of One Gel, your stool is perfectly safe to use as you'd like. But if you want to add a little bit of a vintage charm to it, you can use a little bit of spray wax. I'm using dark umber here, and I like it except for the fact that I don't recommend using it on top of the area where you used the gel transfer, just because sometimes some little bits of paper fragment get left behind and that wax is really going to grab it, and it can make it look a little dingy. It does have a pretty vintage look, but if you don't want it to look dingy at all, use a clear spray wax or use a wax that's the same color as what you have underneath. In this case, it would be a pink. You want to go ahead and add that vintage spray all over the box so you have that unified look. I really like the way it looks on the edges and underside of the box. After the wax was dry, I took another look at the top of my stool and I really didn't like the brown on top of the pink butterfly, so I'm just going around carefully with a sanding sponge and just sanding back the brown wax just to make the butterfly look a little bit brighter and also to give it a little bit more of a shabby chic distressed look. After I finished that, I wiped it down with a damp cloth and then I sprayed on some clear spray wax and rubbed it in just so the entire stool would have the same uniform sheen. And there you have it. You can apply these techniques to any piece of furniture or home decor item that you want. It was so much fun to do and I love having a product that does it all. I'm going to show you another before picture. You could see how grungy and shabby this stool used to be, and now it has been given a whole new life and it's going to be a showpiece in my home. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today and you check out our sponsor heirloomtraditions.com and their fantastic One Gel product. I think you'll really enjoy the things you can do with this. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.